So we are connecting to YouTube. It's always the fun thing with a live stream that you never quite exactly know when you are live. Welcome, welcome, YouTube. This is Clear Vision Wednesday time. And another great episode all about improving your vision naturally. I'm Claudia Mühlenweg, the creator of the Natural Clear Vision Institute and the Natural Clear Vision Method. And today I have a very special guest and a really important topic that we often do not think about or do not hear about from our eye doctor when we go get our eyes checked. So let me bring her on and then I will share a little bit more about her. Welcome, Irena.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, so Irena was a guest here before. Irena was a former sports vision coach. She really, your basically your background is you're a vision teacher, just like I am, but you've been focusing on sports performance, on peripheral vision improvement, and you've developed an amazing tool called the Clarity Eyesight Trainer. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this and why you developed this wonderful tool that we will share a little bit more about at the end.
Right. So, yes, I got into vision improvement and vision coaching because I wanted to develop peripheral vision of my own children. And that was for the purpose of them playing soccer, right? They were little and they were playing soccer as if they had tunnel vision, just so focused on the ball and forgetting everything else around them, including their teams. Their team players, right? And so that was kind of the beginning. And I developed a tool for training peripheral vision for athletics. And then as I was working through that, I encountered natural vision improvement. I went through a very intensive class to become a certified teacher. And so just like you, Claudia, I am a certified teacher of the Bates method. And because of my background, I incorporate other modalities into the way I actually practice natural vision improvement. Along the way, I developed a lot of tools. I am naturally kind of gifted in uncovering some inefficiencies, and it was bothering me whenever I came across something like that during the training, during the practice. And so I developed the Clarity Eyesight Trainer, which is a occlusion type of system that helps with almost all of the techniques or practices that are part of natural vision improvement and makes them more effective and more efficient. So that was kind of my journey of how I got into it. And I just continue learning just like everybody else and continue making this very exciting modality better every day. At least I hope.
I'm so grateful you developed that tool because for some of the peripheral tool, all I use is like Post-it stickers and they fall off your face and they're just annoying. And maybe you can share that tool really quickly to us. So you have this beautiful tool with clip-on little occluders. So you can block your central vision or the near middle far periphery. You have single eye occluders. You have all these different aspects of it, which is super cool. First of all, it's way more precise. It doesn't fall off your face and you can use it to exercise and do all these things. But we're not here to talk so much about peripheral vision today. We are really talking about another attachment tool that you developed because one thing that a lot of times, yep, there it is, it's a field divider. And a lot of times what I found with my clients, and Irena, you probably have the same experience, and my own experience going to the eye doctor, right? A lot of times they don't really check your binocular vision or your 3D vision, right? A lot of times the focus is on visual acuity. Do you have 20/20 vision on the eye chart? But we really those things are all really important. So let me ask you this, why the focus and why did you develop this tool to help with 3D vision? And you will explain to us a little bit, right, how this actually works and why it makes sense. But why this focus on 3D vision?
Absolutely. Well, I think 3D vision is what makes the world feel and be magnificent, right? It adds dimension. 3D stands for dimension, obviously, and it adds to a new visual skill set to somebody who has not experienced it before or experienced it for a long time. And, you know, we live in a world that has beautiful colors and beautiful shapes, and it has depth. And the depth itself in the world just provides an opportunity for great emotional freedom, right? The feeling of being out there in the space, knowing where you stand and seeing the world so large that it is almost free or endless, and it opens up possibilities and opportunities, and you know that emotions and vision are very, very interconnected, right? And so 3D vision actually, from the emotional side, helps people see opportunities for themselves, see possibilities in the world. So there's a lot going on of why 3D vision is important. And obviously, it just makes you see the world the way it is. And it's beautiful and worth going after.
I can tell you the emotional aspect is huge, but also the physical one. I had a strabismus, my eye was turning in. I didn't really know, and that's a question I want to ask you in a moment. Like, how do we even know if we have 3D vision, if we don't have it? Sometimes we might not be aware. But I remember I was like always bumping into things. Like I couldn't catch a ball, it would hit my head. I was like the clumsy kid, right? And later on, I realized that my depth perception of my lack of good 3D vision was part of the problem. So, and then the tests, those kind of magic eye books and those things, I couldn't see those things, those cool 3D images. And I could see IMAX movies. For instance, when I went I would see that super extreme 3D effect of the IMAX movies. But I've outside clients that told me the first time they went to those movies, they're like, what's different about these movies, right? They realized then. So tell us a little bit, like, how do we even know what do we have 3D vision, or and also how good is our 3D vision? How can we know this other than going and getting a thorough eye exam?
Yes, absolutely. And just like you said, right, it is important. It is important from the functional perspective, correct? Going just from the safety perspective, basically, just being around, being safe on the streets, knowing how far it is from one side of the sidewalk to the road as you walk, to make sure you don't fall or you don't step into the road. It is important to just understand the relative space between different objects, and it also leads into the understanding of speed, right? Judgment of speed. So we want to make sure that when we have good 3D vision, it just becomes easier to parallel park, knowing whether there is space for my car, and just those little things. And you mentioned throwing a ball, right? Same thing. You play a frisbee with someone. It is so much more easy when you know how far the frisbee is and how quickly it is moving. So to your question, how do we know that we have 3D vision? And I have a very easy type of exercise that everybody can do. So let's do this together.
Okay.
And you can test what level of 3D vision you actually have, right? And you may not have heard of this before, so stay with me and go ahead and try. So I want you to find two objects in front of you. One that is closer in, that is at around your eye level, and the second that is somewhere in the distance, and that is perceived to be just slightly above, right? Like it can be far away, but you want that object to be just kind of like an inch, 2 inches above the first one.
I just have a
Okay?
list here. Okay.
You can do that. But the far object should be probably at least like 10 feet away if possible, right? So one is close, one is far away. Now, go ahead and cover one eye. Any way you like, cover one eye and look at the first object, and then look at the other object. And the first one and the far one. Close one and far one. And now pay attention to what's happening to your vision. What are your eyes doing? How are they moving? Right? Chances are that the feeling that you have is that you're actually moving vertically up. right? Vertically up and down, up and
Mhm.
down. Now go ahead and do the same thing with both eyes. You look at the first object and then at the object far away. And again, pay attention to what's happening to your eyes, how you are changing your vision, your focus when you look from one object to the other, right? And if you do have good 3D vision, there is a major difference. The difference I can describe like this, right? If you have 2D vision, then you're looking at whatever is in front of you as if it were a picture or a photograph. So when you look from one object, the close-in, to the far one, your gaze is going up, just like that, right? Vertically. If you have good 3D vision, you feel like you're crossing over to the far end of that room, and your gaze and your eyes are reaching out, and you feel almost like if you were zooming a camera, for example, right? And it takes much longer to actually get from the front to the back. Right? So that is a simple way of knowing whether or not your 3D vision is good, right? That is a pretty good test. If you feel like it is exactly the same, that there is no difference when you look with one eye and then both eyes together, then chances are that there is some improvement that can happen to your 3D vision.
So there's room for improvement. I mean, I noticed when I looked in the distance that I saw two of my lip glosses here. I guess that's also a sign, but you will tell us more about this. So yeah, should we talk about how we can improve? So now everybody's done this. And like Irina said, if you have a flat picture, it looks more like you're looking up and down. Otherwise, it looks like you're actually crossing, like, I mean, I'm looking against the wall, so I didn't have the opportunity right now other than turning away and looking really far. But, you can always test this at a space where you can do those things. So you then have that feeling of it's going really far versus just up and down. That's a really interesting way to check this. So what can we do to improve our 3D vision?
Yeah, so in order to improve your 3D vision, you need a good binocular vision, right? So let's talk for a second about how this 3D vision thing actually works, right? In order to see well in 3D, you need two eyes, and you need these eyes to first capture the image projected on the retina. And then from there, it goes through the optic nerve all the way to the back of the head to the visual cortex. And then the brain starts doing some magic. It starts analyzing these two images, leveraging a process that is called binocular disparity. That means that it is taking two images of the exact same thing and taken from two different angles, and it is combining them through the process of fusion, or sometimes called stereopsis, right, into one image that you then perceive as one 3D image, right? So you need binocular vision for this. And in order to have good binocular vision, you need to have both eyes present, right? And they both have to work together. So if I may, I actually prepared a very quick slide to showcase to everybody
Go ahead.
what it looks like, what our binocular vision field actually looks like, and then we will get into the improvement. All right, very good. So what you can see on this picture is our vision field, right? And in our vision field, that is about 200 to 220 degrees, depending on the quality of your peripheral vision. There are two halves. One half is being seen with the left eye, and the other half is being seen with the right eye. And then there is an area in the middle that is about 120 degrees, and that area is seen with both of the eyes together. And that part is called the binocular area, right? So you can try that yourselves. I'm going to get out of it. right? If you cover one eye, you can see that you see everything on the side of the eye and then all the way across your nose to the other side. So you can see about 60 degrees to the other side. And then, of course, it's true with the other side of your, or with the other eye, right? And the other side of your face, okay? So that's the part that you can work on. The rest of it is monocular vision, right? We don't necessarily perceive it as such because of the wide angle of the binocular vision itself. But that is the angle that we can work with to improve our 3D vision. Okay, so what does it mean to improve your binocular vision? First and foremost, you need two eyes, but not only two eyes that are kind of there, but they need to be engaged. That means that both of the eyes have to participate equally in the process of seeing, so that not one of the eyes has to compensate for the other eye, right? So how do we do that? Usually we work on the engagement of the eye towards the beginning of the training in the natural vision improvement process, and we use different tools. In extreme situations, you would use a full occluder, for example, an eye patch, like a pirate patch. But in most situations, there is a better way of doing this, much more gentle way of doing this. And one of the approaches is using the nose guard that we talked about, right? I call it the field of view separator because you're separating the left and right side of the visual field. And that way you then train each of the eyes to become engaged in the process of seeing. Now, it may not be or it may be slightly counterintuitive to be working with one eye and then the other eye when we actually want the two eyes to be together, right? We just said we need both eyes for 3D vision. But each of the eyes have to gain their skill set first individually before they can work together really well. So there are different techniques that are very well described in books, in courses, in Claudia's courses, my courses, that teach how to use this tool for the development of eye engagement, right? Techniques like seeing the corridor, or techniques that leverage turning the card to one side or the other side to progressively allow the eye that is perhaps less engaged to get confident and to start taking over the responsibility that the other eye has been compensating for. Okay, so things like that, really important for eye engagement as a step one. Now, once your eyes are engaged, then you can start working on acuity and on adjusting the distance at which each eye can see. This is also very important because in order for the brain to actually give us a good 3D image, just like I said, it has to be taken in a way, or it has to combine two pictures that are practically identical. The only difference is that they are taken from a different angle, right? And so if there is a vast difference between the acuity of the left eye and the right eye, then it is almost impossible for the brain to combine two images. If one is blurry and one is sharp, it's difficult to figure out what to compensate for, right? So 3D vision becomes more difficult. So I know that this is the vast majority of focus of natural vision improvement courses and techniques to really adjust clarity of seeing, the distance at which we can see, using charts, using the Brock string, using many other techniques, right? Practicing converging, diverging, all of these different individual skills that then, when combined, lead to better seeing at new distances. Okay, so that is the second thing. Again, in this part of the training, you would be working with the left eye separately from the right eye before bringing them necessarily together, okay? So once you have an engaged eye and you have acuity that is at least somewhat similar in the two eyes, you can come to the last step, and that is alignment and coordination of the eyes. Why do they have to be aligned? To be aligned means that they are actually looking at the same spot, meaning that you are looking with both eyes where you think you're looking, right? The Brock string with the beads is an excellent tool that helps teaching this. It's a technique that is called seeing the cross, right? And you're teaching the eyes using both the eyes, but also techniques like visual memory, visual imagination to help you relearn how to ensure that you are actually looking with both eyes at the same spot. If that is not the case, then the brain is receiving two images that are different, which can lead to diplopia, for example, right? Double vision. And so this is a very important step. And then, towards the end, you want to make sure that everything works in great synchrony. So you're using, again, tools like the nose guard to throw balls overhead, to throw balls at target, to ensure that the two eyes are passing the signals from one to the other, that they are working together in coordination, and that they are becoming true partners that are equal and not working together, but not necessarily dependent on each other. All right.
Can I ask a couple of things for those of watching that don't really know? So the field divider, the nose cut that you just had on, it has two different colors. Obviously this is not an actual vision lesson, but can you put that back on? And so there's a pink side, right? So there's a pink and a blue side. And you talked briefly about the corridor. Can you just briefly explain what you're talking about so that everybody kind of understands a little bit of what this is?
Yes, absolutely. So for the corridor, right, that was the technique that I mentioned in step 1 of the development of 3D vision. And what that means is that each of the eyes sees one side of the card, right? That's why the card has two different colors. And in the product that we have developed, we actually have multiple cards because some eyes like to see red, some eyes like to see green and other colors. And we, in natural vision improvement, no matter what technique, we always want to work from the point of ease, making it as easy for the eyes as possible, right? So we have two sides of the card. And the funny thing is that whatever is on the right side, here, my pink, right, I actually see on the left side, and whatever is on the left side, I see with the left eye on the right side. It appears to be on the right side, and there is space in between when I look forward, right? And you will know that both of your eyes are engaged if you can see both of the colors, if you can see the space in between. And when you can do so, when you start moving your head to different, under different angles, left to right, up and down, and when you don't necessarily have difficulties keeping those colors present as you look.
So the corridor is the little gap between the cards, and so the colors are flipped, which is connected to, because each eye is connected to both sides of the brain. That to me was the most fascinating part about binocular vision. I have a couple more questions for you. So another one with the Brock string. So you briefly showed the Brock string, which is basically a piece of rope with different beads on it. And you talked a little bit about how I think you said something about the Brock string is a great tool to check in step 3, I think it was, where both eyes are actually looking at the same thing together. Can you briefly explain, like, if you were to do that, like, what if your eyes are actually looking at something, what would you see, and what would you see if they're not looking? Like, just
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So the Brock string is a string with beads, right? And so you attach one end to as far as you can, and you bring it forward, and you look at the bead that is close to you, right? Or the bead of your choice, actually. And when you look at the bead, if both of your eyes are looking at the same spot, then right where the bead is, you are going to see a cross. It will appear as if there are two strings coming towards the bead, and then they cross over, and there are two strings coming out of the bead, right? But if you're not looking at the same spot, what's going to happen is the cross is going to be either in front of the bead or behind the bead, right? And so you will need to use different techniques like memory and imagination with closed eyes and then open eyes to adjust where you want to see the cross and reteach your eyes to aim at the exact same spot. The Brock string gives you feedback immediately. It is one of the easiest ways to realize whether or not you're looking where you think you're looking, right? And it is also pretty easy to adjust when you start involving this this willful element of seeing and making your eyes look where you want them to look.
So to recap, you showed that purple bead. So if I'm looking at the purple bead, I would see the two strings, and there's one purple bead, and the strings seem to be kind of making an X right where the bead is. But if I think I'm looking at the purple bead, but I'm looking, let's say, in front or behind it, I will see the X, the crossing in front or behind the purple bead, and I will see probably two purple beads.
You would also see two purple beads. Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Because I don't know about you, but I had clients that are like, no, I'm looking at the purple bead, but I see two. I'm like, well, you're not looking at the purple bead.
Yes,
I love that
yes.
it's simple, right? It's such a great way. And obviously, the techniques to improve this, this is what we teach in our programs, and that goes beyond. But just those simple things, just having a string with a few beads and just noticing, do you see the one bead when you look at that bead and other strings crossing is so simple. So another thing that I'm always curious about, and I have a very specific opinion, I'm curious about yours. So very commonly nowadays, people get what's called monovision or monocular vision correction, right? Either with LASIK or contacts or lens implants, where basically, with cataract surgery, for instance, where one eye is made to look near and one eye is made to look far, and that's convenient. Now you don't need glasses, you don't need progressives. So what is your opinion about, because it's kind of a popular thing that people do. What do you think about this monovision or whatever, monocular vision correction?
It is a very interesting concept, and honestly, when I first heard of it, I actually thought that somebody was joking because I felt like, how are you supposed to benefit fully from your vision when you have these two corrections? And also, how do you read or look into the distance when you always only see with one eye?
Right.
So, in my opinion, maybe it is convenient, but I would say that it is, from my perspective, very, very suboptimal, because I believe that even if a person has to have a correction and they choose to have a correction for distance or for near, right, there is always a possibility for them to continue working on their vision, to train different skills and to get to the point when they can even have the 3D experiences. Right. But I honestly do not really know. And that is perhaps because I don't know, not necessarily that I have proof of that. But I feel like it must be extremely difficult for a person who has correction, one for far and one for near, to have true natural vision experiences.
I mean,
So,
I was asking that because you talked about how when we look at something and one eye sees something blurry and one eye sees a clear picture, that the composite is kind of messed up. Like it really affects your 3D vision if you only use one eye at a time. And yes, both eyes are open. So from my experience, and maybe you have noticed that too, I've noticed people that have that the depth perception, their 3D vision is either really, really not there or it's very weak. And so that's when we're speaking of fall, that was our topic today. It's like falls and trips. And as we get older, we might mistake a shadow for a step or the other way around. We think and we don't realize it's a step and we fall and trip, and those are very high risk, right? So but yeah, because you talked about very clearly that it doesn't make sense, and if you have that correction, then there will never be a distance, maybe somewhere in the middle, but not really. There will never be a distance where both eyes see the object equally clear or equally blurry. So there will always be one eye, you know what I mean? Like, so to me that sounds
yeah.
exactly of what,
Yeah.
right?
We all know that our brain is very, very powerful and it is capable of compensating for a lot of different things, right? We know that it can even compensate for choroidal ruptures and tears in retina and many other ways or many other injuries. So it's hard to say that it's impossible, but I would say that based on my experience, it is more difficult, and most likely the level of 3D vision is going to be low for people who have this. Now, I would love to be corrected in this, in my opinion of this. So if there is a listener who has different experience, right, it would be great to hear and learn from them how they have achieved this or what they're doing differently. But in general, right, in order to get good 3D vision, and it is done like that in the movie industry too, in what you mentioned at the beginning, right, Claudia, that you do have to have two images that are the same, just taken from a slightly different angle. And if they are vastly different, it simply doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so important to consider. I mean, and again, the fact I think people that don't have 3D vision, it's really poor, they just learn to compensate. And and sometimes the 3D vision is almost like that afterthought because you kind of learned, to adapt using the parallax effect. And there's other ways if you don't have 3D vision. But if you're like blind or if your vision is really blurry, it's more like noticeable, right? It's almost like I feel like you are focusing on the binocular vision, the 3D vision, and the peripheral vision. I think those are the two aspects of vision that so often get ignored, right? Peripheral vision with glaucoma, right? People don't even realize how much they lost of their peripheral field because it's not the black tunnel. It's kind of the brain fills in the like Photoshop content aware filler, right? Where you just fill in. And I think it's so
And it's
important.
true with myopic
Right?
people also, right? Just by the nature of the lens itself, the way the lens corrects the
Right.
vision, the visual signals do not fall on the full surface of the retina. And that is no fault of the wearer. It is just the natural quality of the lens, right? The natural kind of attribute of the lens. And so, yes, I do focus on all of these different things because good vision is a composition of visual skills, right? And so we can't just say we're going to train this one skill. That's always a question that comes up. What should be the technique that I practice,
I
right?
know,
And
right?
the true answer is all of them, but you don't have to practice them all at the same time. You go through the process of relearning how to see, learning the individual skills that start with relaxation as the absolute basic skill, right? And then through seeing movement, and then you go to acuity, and then over time you go through all of these other things that we mentioned today to reach the proficiency of natural seeing, right? You can stop in the middle, but that means that you have stopped in the middle. And it doesn't mean that there aren't the other techniques that are still there for you to experience what I do call the magnificent 3D world.
I think, thank you so much. We have one question that I want to read to you and I want you to answer, but also, again, there's so much focus on visual acuity, which is eyesight, right? That's glasses, and it's obviously important that we see sharp. But I'd be encouraged, hopefully everybody listening to this now, to really pay attention because your peripheral vision, your 3D vision makes you a better driver. Reading a license plate from like however far away is not going to make you a good driver if you have no depth perception, if your peripheral vision, you don't see the pedestrians, you don't see the car changing lanes. Like this is literally, especially as we get older, we lose some of those skills. So important. So we highly recommend, Irena, why don't you tell us a little bit more about how people can get the tool and how people can follow you, or I think you have a blog or a newsletter, how people can sign up. And
Yes.
then one question I would like to read to you.
Yes, so obviously for anyone who wants to connect, my website is overboundeyesight.com. To sign up for my blog, which is how you can stay connected and how you can receive little tips and ideas and some teaching is through overboundeyesight.com/blog, right? And on the website, you can learn much about the Overbound Eyesight Trainer, about the system that teaches peripheral vision, 3D vision, but that is also highly suitable as you practice acuity techniques for myopia, hyperopia, presbyopia, astigmatism, and all of those, right? So you can learn all of this right on my website. And then if you need help, there is a connect button, and you can always connect with me right on the website by sending me an email and asking questions.
Fantastic. So there's a question. So there's a question about that field divider that you showed us earlier. Is there an ideal distance? Is there an ideal distance away to be looking for the corridor to appear? I need to look far and without a lot of clutter, like stuff in the house or tree outside. So basically, like, because sometimes I don't know, I had a lot of clients that don't see the card flipped, but they just see the card on the same side, and they don't see that, I call it the gap or the corridor, but that little space between the two. So can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So the easiest way to begin this training is to look into the distance against a blank wall, right? And once you know that you can see it, then you can begin kind of exploring, right? Adding new, what I call distraction elements, things on a wall, paintings, going through a kitchen and practicing in a kitchen, right? So it is quite natural that at the beginning, when you start noticing these two sides, the two colors, you start losing it if you get distracted by other object. But it is working closer in. I'm not saying that it works if you look at your nose, because then you go into super convergence, right? And then you start seeing the two cards actually, or the card as a triangle going outwards and the two colors connected, right? So for this particular purpose, you do have to look at least someone ahead, but 1 foot, 2 feet, 5 feet, it is totally up to you. And you should have the ability to see the corridor from different distances. And also using the card, right? The benefit of this particular tool is if you don't see one of the colors, you can turn slightly the card towards one of the eyes to kind of entice it to see the color, and then bring it back when you can. And you can also decide in what direction your card is going to go. So the corridor is significantly wider if your card is short, right? So if you position a card vertically like this, right, then your corridor is significantly wider than if you have a very long card that you put this way, and then your corridor shrinks, right? So it kind of increases your skill set, and you may want to start with a card that is positioned vertically and that's not very deep. And then over time, make the card longer and longer to extend your ability to see this corridor and to keep the eyes engaged.
So if people want to get that tool, we obviously put the links there. And if they need help, I mean, are you offering coaching programs, or if they, obviously getting the tool is one thing, but and also realizing, I have problems, how can I help? How can people work with you?
Yes, so this particular attachment is an extension to the Clarity Eyesight Trainer, right? The Clarity Eyesight Trainer, for anyone who engages in natural vision improvement, is like a basic starter kit, right? It has the occluders that help with, just like I said, just about any visual skills you want to train, right? There are single eye occlusion, mono eye occlusion, different sizes that help you practice and develop various skills. This is an extension, right, that comes with it, and it can all be purchased in the shop. And the instructions for using the cards, just like I said throughout the talk, they are provided, and they are provided in the various full classes, whether it goes through Claudia, right? Claudia teaches how to use them. Whether it goes through my own classes, I teach in my private courses, in my self-taught courses, how to use this card and how to develop 3D vision. Right. So I think that's the best way to engage. It is It is one of the elements, so it would be unwise to tell people, well, you just get this one thing and this is the only thing you need to do, right? So it is explained, it is well taught, but it is taught in the context of natural vision improvement as part of the full courses, so that it would help you truly succeed and truly get from where you are now to where you want to be, which is seeing the magnificent world in 3D.
I was just thinking as you were talking, I think we need to, like all sports coaches and even in senior, so like we need to have these visual skills. They make such a difference in your freedom, as you talked about, as we get older. I think it's so important that we teach other people that can then bring it forward, right? So that more and more people can benefit from this, because not everybody is necessarily interested in their eyesight improvement so much, but I think these skills, like you said, are so crucial for safety, for well-being, for enjoying the world, for sports. I mean, for anything that you do. I mean, even if it's not high speed, like, mountain biking down a hill, they're really important. So we had one comment that I wanted to quickly share. Is basically there was a comment here in my membership that's not on YouTube, but somebody who said they had monovision correction for many years and realized they ended up taking my program, realized they don't have 3D vision, and now not where, changing the glasses, not, I think it was monovision correction glasses, but restored their 3D vision. So I think we want to make sure everybody understands that depending on the severity, right, Irina, you probably agree, we have to take into account not everything can be fixed, quote unquote, but you have in your power to make massive changes in the quality of how well you see, and especially your peripheral vision and your 3D vision, right? There is so much you can do. We haven't really talked about, Irina, about amblyopia or somebody who has a really, quote unquote, lazy eye. That is amblyopia, but strabismus are more challenging cases. But all those can be helped, and you definitely will need more of a guidance, right? If somebody wants to just kind of tune up their 3D vision versus somebody who starts from ground zero, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the techniques are not necessarily different, but they may have to be fine-tuned. You may have to have a little bit more explanation, a little bit more help. Natural vision improvement is a very creative modality because not one eye is the same as another eye, right? And so for people who do have more complicated situations, they will want to have at least some level of guidance to get to where they want to go.
There's some interesting comments on YouTube just now as I was just saying goodbye. I was just thinking we're done. So somebody said they just had strabismus surgery and need brain convergence. And then the next question was, is strabismus surgery usually successful? What are your thoughts on, and really quickly, the surgery, they just basically aligning your eyes. I don't have my two eyeballs here, but if one out, they basically make them look straight. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so strabismus is a great example of eye strain, right? The disbalance of the muscles, some muscles being very tight while others are loose as they should be. And usually the correction of strabismus when done by surgery is that the muscles that are loose actually get tightened, right? They get smaller. And so the problem there is to figure out how to then relax both of the muscles, right? The one that was tight before and the one that is now shorter and therefore is in a different anatomic situation. And so knowing that strabismus can be very well addressed by the techniques that are part of the Bates method and other natural vision improvements methods and vision therapy, it is sad to see that being done prior to any other therapy, right, or any other practice. And so my personal opinion is give nature a chance first, because more often than not, even when the strabismus is pretty severe, the eyes can align simply by relaxation and by practicing the correct techniques.
Right. And I mean, the vision is brain-based. And so I also think that even if you have this surgery, it's super important to work with a vision improvement teacher like Irena or myself, or work with a behavioral optometrist, but definitely you're right. Your brain, just because the muscles are now tightened, your brain is still not like, how do I use this? What you said in the beginning, right? Having the eyes work together. So I think it's very important that you don't just get the surgery, because eventually, right? Because it doesn't address the root cause. I mean, I'm sure you're the same opinion. I've had
Yes.
I dated a guy a while back. He had like 4 strabismus surgeries, and he always had vision therapy afterwards. The eyes were fine, and then he just kind of stopped. He just, he was also nearsighted, and sure enough, 2, 3 years down the road, he needed another surgery. And so every time you go in, you cut those muscles. I mean, that's also trauma to the whole system. So it's important that you learn the skills, what Irena was teaching, and that you continuously practice that. And it doesn't mean like exercise all the time. It can be, I'm sure you teach many, many fun games. So it's really, but not just,
Absolutely.
right? Is that
Yes, aiming at a distance or different distances, right? For strabismus is one of the most fun and most effective ways of dealing with it. Because when we want to look at something, that is when it is much easier for the eye to actually do that, right? Again, you're practicing with one eye, other eye, both eyes together, lots of different techniques to over time combine into the full skill set of seeing. But strabismus, given that it truly is a almost voluntary or involuntary turn, right? You can the patient or the student feels like it is not voluntary, but very often they do have control over it, and they just need to figure out how to control it and how to let go. And if the surgery has already been done, just like you said, right, there is still a way of helping the eyes figure out how to operate under this new condition, teaching the brain how to deal with it, right? And how to get itself into a relaxed way of existence, which will then prevent the situation from repeating itself or from getting worse.
Well, thank you so much. This was super interesting. And everybody here, we posted all the links. You can subscribe to her blog. You can buy the tool if you are interested in moving forward. But yeah, your website is chock full of information. You write a great blog article. Thank you so much for joining us today, Irena. This was really amazing. Any last words you want to share before we end this episode?
I just want to thank you, and I want to thank all the viewers for being here. And I want to encourage everyone to not stop with acuity. Don't stop by being able to read or just look, 20 feet ahead. Go the extra mile to truly gain this wonderful ability to see the world in dimension for safety and for your own emotional well-being. I
Thank
hope
you.
to see you sometime soon.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Goodbye.